Breaking into stage 19s is where the late game really starts to begin, because once you can farm just one of these stages and get all these lovely extra rewards, your account progress opens up massively. And the good news is that Gear 2 is usually the first one that players are able to do because there are actually several different strategies that can help you beat this stage. So there's usually something that you can adapt to your roster. Hi there and welcome to the channel. I'm Slate, and today I'm going to show you 3 strategies to beat Gear 2 stage 19 all the way to 21. So the first strategy that I want to talk about is probably what I would say is the easiest in terms of stat requirements. But the main thing that you are going to need is Volka and Volka A1. Day 105 is when you are able to get the first Volka Soulstone. So that is day 35 if you are managing to do 3 tides a day. And that is essentially the earliest that you will be able to do this strategy. And then it's pretty straightforward. You are going to need a healer. Vortex is fantastic for this. Elowin is another nice shot because of the passive rage that she's able to do. But whoever your healer is needs to be very tanky, which is why a Vortex is absolutely fantastic. You are then going to need at least 1 second life tank, and that is where someone like Baron or Rox again is really nice. And then you will need 2 other tanks, a Decimus, a DPS, which we will get to in a second. And then you'll see here that there is Laurel and Daochan. Now, these 2 are basically what I would call support, in the fact that if you are needing to boost your DPS with inspiration, bringing in a Daochan or even a Dolores is an absolutely super fantastic way to do it. But obviously some heroes, cough cough, Honora, who I keep forgetting, aren't able to receive inspiration, so you may not bring her in. And then obviously Laurel, if you get her to 5-star promotions, when she is picked up off the field, she will generate rage for your heroes, and so that can help you get the ult in time if you need it. And then essentially it is just 1 DPS. So like I said, you want to bring in the best DPS that you have. My absolute favorites for this level are going to be a Comet. Honora is fantastic. Boreas is good. We have our superstar Vienna. She is great. You could bring in, there's a lot of options for this. You can bring in a ground hero, and I will show you the placements for that. But essentially, we are going to go with good old Comet. Let's bring him in. And then again, like I said, some kind of Lord to help, which is really great. So yeah, whoever your best DPS is. And obviously, and also it doesn't actually have to be AoE. So for example, if you have a bonded Silas, he is someone that could do this. You have a lot of options in terms of who your DPS is in. Now, here's the thing. What you are going to do to start off is put down your DPS and hope that they are able to kill it. Now, if they are not able to kill it in time, which is absolutely fine, you're going to put down Decimus for the first time. Now, one thing that you can do in 20 to 21 is actually put Decimus, instead of putting him in Rapidity, which lowers his cost, which can be really nice, you could put him in Invig, and then however bad the invig is, because it doesn't matter, and then place that basically onto your DPS by facing them right, if that makes sense. And then yeah, pick up your DPS. And then we're just going to wait for our big angry golem to come out, and he's going to go, oh my goodness me, this is a horrible shriek. It's going to go, ah. And then here is where the specific timings come in. So this is round 2. And what we are going to do is we're going to wait for the Earthshake, and the golem is going to slam his fist down. He's going to get really, really angry. And then when both fists come down, and also you can just sort of like hover and leave your mouse here, and then you're going to see a flash any second now, and that is where you're going to release. And that is how Decimus is going to be able to survive when this second runner comes down. And what we're going to do is just before, we're going to click, and then you're going to see this guy's nose. He's going to run into Decimus, and then his nose is going to go back and say, oh my goodness me, I got hit. Oh no. And you're going to pick up Decimus to get some of the cost back. And then you're going to put down one of your tanks, or you could put down a body. It doesn't really matter. We're going to put our healer facing up so that they're not healing anyone. And then we are going to put down our DPS. And this is what I mean by the support. You're going to put your inspiration unit here, your DPS here, Laurel goes in the middle, and then immediately picked up. We're going to change Daochan if you're using her into inspiration. Otherwise, it's just going to be for the, what's it called? For the thing? ult at the same time. But yeah, basically when these guys at the top come around the corner, that is when most DPS is where you want to ult with them then. Obviously, if it is someone like a Vienna, you need to wait for them to come slightly lower down. And then once all of those guys have gone, that is where we are going to pick everyone up again. And then essentially, because Volka is A1, these guys will have a much lower cooldown rate, and therefore we can essentially repeat that again. So for round 3, or the second round of the Shrieks, depending on how you want to call it, we are going to put down our first second life tank here on one side and Decimus on the other. We don't have to wait for any of the slams because it's a slightly different timing. And we're going to do the exact same thing as what we did last time. Just going to speed it up slightly. And when the nose goes back, he's going to hit him. Loop. And we're going to pick both of these up. And we're going to put down our 2 tanks again. And then we're just going to wait. Now, these tanks may need some surviving. So you might, for example, put your Vortex here or here. I wouldn't recommend putting them next to the tank because it's going to, the rock golems does in like a square all the way around them. But ideally, you're not going to need that. You can put down your Laurel. We're going to put down our DPS. We're going to put down our thing. We're going to immediately pick up our Laurel, swap Daochen, and we're going to pop Comet again. And hopefully, again, if he's got a long enough ult, that'll be absolutely fine. And then when these guys have gone, and as you can see, this round is all here, you can pick up your tanks here because the chances are your DPS are going to be able to kill it in time. But obviously they may need to stay down if that is something that isn't happening. And then as soon as your DPS has killed this one, usually as long as, even if you get shrieked out, which is when the timer goes and everyone dies, that's going to be okay because we're now coming into the final round. And actually, there's a couple of little tips and tricks that will help you, even if you sort of wait to the very end to be able to kill everyone. Now, with this round, we are going to be able to put our second life tank down straight away. But with our Decimus, again, because of his little weird timings, what we're going to do is it's basically just before the light happens. So it's sort of, because you've got to make sure that he comes down. So as soon as he hits the ground is where we're going to release Decimus. So rather than waiting for the flash, it's a tiny little bit different. Otherwise, sometimes you catch him the other side, which is sort of okay, to be honest. And then, yeah, we're going to wait. And this is where you put down, like Volka, she's just a body. And this is where the second life really helps because as you could see, we didn't have another tank up ready in time. That's why if you don't need a Laurel, for example, or don't need a Daochen, bringing in the extra bodies can help. You can even ult with your Baron to give you a bit more time as well. But we're absolutely fine. So we're going to come down and drop our Zold and pick it back up. Now, here's the thing that you can do. There are 2 ways to do it. The safest way is going to be putting Decimus to block the boss. He is then going to go into his little rage where he turns red and he does a really big smash. And kills things. Now, if you have another unit on the board, he will continue to rage for a long time. But if there isn't another unit on the board, he comes out of it very quickly. And then all you have to do is put down your tank, put down your healer, put down your DPS. And this is where cost can get a little bit tight. And that's why I kind of prefer that strat to trying to survive the multiple slams that the guy does in his rage, because sometimes your tank can die and then you try and put the next one down and everything like that, and then you just run out of cost quite easily. We can pick up our Laurel and we're going to ult with our lovely Comet, and that is essentially how we do the Volka strat and the timings with that. Okay, so for variation 2, we're going to be doing it with a ground unit. And we're also going to be bringing in a cost generator if cost is something that you're slightly struggling with. As you can see, our main DPS, our ground DPS is going to be an Arrogance. Obviously, it does not need to be Nightmare. You could bring in basically anyone. The only thing I would say is just keep an eye on cost because obviously that can be a little bit tricky, and make sure that they hit hard. The only other thing that I'd say. And obviously you can do the whole thing where you have Laurel and Daochen to support as well. So, that's absolutely fine. But anyway, what we are going to do is we're going to put down our cost generator, and we're going to put down our DPS. Now, the only problem with someone like an Arrogance is because his ult is on auto. It is a little bit tricky, but you should be able to work your way around it. Anyway, as soon as things have been done, we're going to leave our cost generator down because ideally she'll be able to do some stuff. Now, Na'Vi is another option. Cyrene is another option, although typically speaking, Cyrene works really well when something is going to hit her. But anyway, we are going to pick just before the Shriek. And as you can see, we have a lot more cost this time, which is really, really nice. And then it's going to be the exact same thing that we've been doing, whereby it is going to be the Double Slam, Bright Light, Drop Decimus, wait for them to pick up, and then use a body. We can use Wrath in this case. We're going to put down our Arrogance, put down our Vortex. Because you don't want to let it hit, this is where I would then put your healer on this side. Does that make sense? And then, yeah, I mean, ideally, you won't need to put any blockers down, but sometimes you will have to. And that is where I would use your, what I call second tanks, your second line of defense. They're going to go there. And your DPS is going to go bloop. And once he's killed them all, we're going to pick them up. And we're going to go for the next round. And like I said, instead of Aatrox here and Draelyn, you could do Daochen and Laurel if that is, something you're struggling with. And then it's essentially the same thing. You're going to do Baron, you're going to do Decimus, and it is exactly the same as what we did with the platform DPS. So we're not gonna finish it. We're gonna end that. But that is the variation in order to do the Volka A1 strategy. So the reason I say that this is the easiest strategy in terms of gear is you only need to have one good DPS set. You then need to have two good tank sets because it is literally just the two, what I call second tanks or main tanks that are going to need to hold the line. Your Decimus and your Baron, or whoever else you're bringing in for second life, don't actually need to have any gear on them because you're basically relying on their passive. But obviously, keeping your second life tank alive longer will give you a little bit more breathing room, and so that's really helpful. And then, that's essentially it. It is the main DPS, and then obviously a tanky healer. But the wonderful thing about Vortex is he's HP based anyway. He's fantastic. So yeah, so that is strategy number one. So the second strategy that we are going to talk about is known as the Sadie strategy. This was sort of the OG strategy that sort of came up with Gear Age 2. It sort of actually happens when you're doing 21 to 24. She comes back in, and that is because she is able to have this thing on her ultimate called Final Damage Reduction, which helps your team survive the really nasty Golem Shriek. And so you don't have to cycle units as much. There is one other hero that can do that, and that is Draelyn, and we will explain the variation with her later. But essentially what you are going to need in this team is a Sadie, fully skilled. Awakenings are not important, but obviously awakenings are nice. Artifact, she needs to be able to rage a lot, so a Golden Scarab. Now obviously, like I said, because this is the main account, the gear is really good, and so gear requirements will come down. I've tried to keep everyone, like I said, in tier 2 gear, but essentially you're looking at all HP bonus and rage regen. Try and get that as high as possible. And then the other thing, obviously, that we're bringing in for rage regen is going to be a holo. Built for rage as well. And then the third healer is going to be Vortex for those lovely big shields. Now, other than those three healers, I mean, you could bring in other healers if you would like. Other options, you could bring in an Eloin for rage regen. You could bring in Percy. You could, there are different options, but essentially you want to have Sadie or your final damage mitigator, two other healers, one with range, one for survivability, and then you are going to need tanks. You're going to need 2 tanks. Now, what I recommend is bringing in a tank with a second life, such as Rox or Baron, as well as another really solid tank. Olag's really good because, he does lovely shields, but essentially you could use any tanks. Ideally Northern, because you're going to be bringing in a Northern Lord. But other than that, it doesn't really matter. And then you're going to need 1 DPS. Now, why do I say 1 DPS? Because that's literally all you need. Now, there is a variation, which I will show you, of using a ground unit. But for this example, we are going to bring in a platform unit, and that is going to be Iona. Obviously, if you have better options than Iona, definitely use that. All I would recommend is bringing in your strongest like AoE mage and pairing them with whatever is appropriate lords. So obviously, if it's cultist, try and bring in a cultist lord. And obviously, if it is esoterics, for example, Boreas or a Karmit, then bring in an esoteric lord. So yeah, anyway, that is the lineup. Okay, so first things first is going to be the Sadie placements. Now, Sadie, if you are using ground DPS, is going to go here in this top lane. If it's platform, it's going to go here, but we're actually not going to place her down first. We're going to place down our vortex over here. And that is because when the rock throwers come out, they target the first platform placed. And actually we want to make sure that we're not getting loads of stuff hit. So he is going to go down there. We're going to place our first tank. And then at 9 cost is where we're going to place Sadie. So like I said, if it is a platform DPS that you're bringing in, she goes in the middle. If it is a ground DPS, it goes to the top, but then you do have to change the placement of the vortex. So anyway, like I said here, that is where that is going. And then we are going to bring down our hollow, like so. And at the Shriek of Golem, we're going to ult with Sadie, and then we're going to immediately ult with Hollow to get some rage up. And then when it gets to the end of this Earth Shake and the Earth Shake is about to start is where we ult with Vortex. And now you can drop Decimus to stop these runners if that helps. If you're struggling a little bit, just pick them up. And then obviously we're going to put down our main DPS and then our second tank. And that is essentially the placement. We don't really actually need to touch anyone. With a hero like Oleg, we are not going to ult with him at all, but you could ult with the rocks as he is able to increase stuff. I don't know. Yeah. Ult with Ionos at the same time as previously when they're all here. And then we are going to wait for the next shriek. Again, at the shriek, ult with Sadie. And then whichever side is a little bit weaker is where you can put down your Decimus. Ult with Vortex and Hollow. Wait a little bit longer. Ult with Iona. Whoop. And they should be able to clear it absolutely fine. I'll Golem Shriek again. Ult with Sadie. Ult with Hollow. And then at the Earth Shake, ult with Vortex. Put down Decimus if you need to. What you'll notice here is once the right side is taken out, if it happens, you can then pick up your tank here because nothing else is coming down and we're just going to focus on the boss. So he's going to go into his little red mode and that's where I would ult with Sadie again because this slam is kind of nasty. Ult with your Vortex and just wait for your DPS to get rid of the boss. Just take it down. Which will happen any minute now. Like so. So yeah, that is the main way that you can use Sadie. Okay, so for this next variation, I'm going to make 2 changes. We are going to be showing you how to use the placements with a ground unit as well as with a unit like Elowen who has a different like range, if that makes sense. So first things first, we're going to still make sure that Sadie is going to be in this top lane because it's there, but because we are going to have to use this entire row, it doesn't actually matter who gets hit. So we're actually going to put down Sadie first this time. Then we are going to put down our Elowen like so. And actually there should be just enough cost to then put down our tank. If you had an Earless, she would have to go probably on this platform. And then obviously our third healer can go here. But actually, I don't think Earless would work because she's not covered by the Sadie. Yeah, so that's not going to work. So it would have to basically be a you could face another like you could put hollow in here facing up. That's absolutely fine. But you've got to make sure that everyone is within Sadie's range. So again, we're going to wait for the shriek. Alt with Elowen. And alt with Vortex. Now here's the thing. We are going to use this tile here to put down our DPS. And then we've got our tank there. Oh, it's not facing the right way, but that's absolutely fine. And yeah, and like I said, these rock guys will now target Sadie. And so you just got to make sure that she's okay. And again, it's the exact same thing as before where we are going to ult with our DPS, but obviously they are now a ground unit. I'm not going to finish the run because the timings are exactly the same. Shriek, Vortex, etc., etc. But those are the difference in the placements. And the final variation is actually, like I said, we are going to be using Draelyn instead. So Draelyn, again, on her skills, is in her passive, is that after casting the ultimate, it applies this final damage reduction for 10 seconds. So that is basically where it is. But her timings are very slightly different. We're going to keep the same place, heroes here. But again, this works for platform or for ground. But essentially what you have to understand is that everyone now has to be within Draelyn's range. And so, yeah, we're going to put her down. And then we are able to put down Vortex here. Then we are able to put down our Elowen or our healer or Hollow, can go in either of these spots facing up. And then we are going to do same thing, except for Draelyn's timing, it's slightly different. We're actually going to just wait till it's about halfway through the bar because she takes a little bit longer to do it. And then everyone's up. You should see these lovely shields around everyone. And then again with Earthshake, we're going to ult with Vortex, put down our DPS. Obviously, if you had a platform DPS, they could go here. And the other thing with this is you could use 2 DPS if you needed. And of course, we are going to put down a second tank there as well. Yeah, and then again, it's the same thing. If you had platform DPS, it goes there. If you are struggling with the runners that come out, you can bring in bodies like Decimus in order to stop some of the mobs and ult with your DPS. And that is the variation using Draelyn. Like I said, just make sure everyone stays in. So platform unit would go here and ground DPS goes here. Okay, for the final strategy that we are going to talk about, this is what I managed to use on my light account in order to progress. So we are not using Volka and we are not using Sadie. Instead, we are going to utilize ground heroes in order to beat the boss. And what I would say is that this is quite stat heavy in terms of the gear that you are going to need. Essentially, you are going to need to have a super strong DPS, and that is why someone like Nezha is absolutely fantastic for this. He is in my best set, and I am going to show you this on stage 21 because I want to also show you that these strategies work from 19 all the way to 21. And so yeah, so essentially you are going to need a hero like Nezha. You are going to need a second ground DPS. I'm going to be using Eris, and I have brought a third one in with Estrid because it does help. It isn't necessary. You could easily replace it for a tank. And then the other key requirements are, again, you're going to need 2 solid tanks. So I'm going to have Oleg and Isolde, and you are going to need a second life tank along with your Decimus. And then the other thing that I would say that is really key for this strategy in particular is having a ground healer. And so for me, that is a constant. So what you could do is get rid of your third DPS and bring in another tank, and then you could have another healer here, because the one thing again that you'll see is that essentially we aren't really cycling units in the same way that you would cycle them with a Volka strategy. First thing that you're going to have to do for this is we're going to put down our Nezha, and he is going to have to take out these golems to start with. And ideally what we might have to do, depending, but he managed to clear it, is fine, is you may need to reset that sometimes. I think that is one thing that I would say when you are trying to clear any content. There's a lot of RNG sometimes in people's kits with how many times they do an extra hit or use a different weapon or different things like that. And so you may need to just actually restart runs if you are struggling a little bit, but we should be absolutely fine here. And like I said, Nezha is going to take this one out. Once that is done, we are going to pick him back up. And then we're going to wait for the big gnarly golem to come out. And he's going to do his shriek and we're going to do absolutely nothing. And then this is going to be very similar to what we did with the Volka strategy. We are going to put down the Decimus on the double slam. 1, 2, 3. Wait for the flash. Nope. Wait for the second. Loop. And then we're going to put down our first like good tank. Just going to go here. Then we're going to put down our Ares. We're going to put down our Vortex, but as soon as fully healed, we pick up so that we're not getting targeted by the platform units. And we're going to put our third DPS, or you could, like I said, you could actually do a second, another tank here. So that is definitely an option. And then essentially we are going to ult with our DPS. Spam click there. Come on. And we're going to try and ult with this DPS as well. Okay. And then once they're all done, pick up Estrid. This side's completed. Pick up this side here and pick up there. And then we've got that next shriek round. So again, very similar. We are going to be putting down a Rox, our second life tank on this side, with a Decimus on this side. Wait for the second set of runners to come round. Now for this one, we've got to really quickly pick up both of them. And then we're going to put down our tank and our healing tank. Or like I said, if this was just a normal tank, you would then need to put down another healer. And we're going to put down our Nezha. Now thinking about it, you could actually bring in Volka A1 for this. Like I think it would still work, to be honest, and then you wouldn't necessarily have to cycle. And I think that is just one last thing to say, is that a lot of these strategies, or any strategy that you're looking at, you can adapt. And obviously we're going to ult with Constance to get a little bit more DPS up. And then we're going to pick everyone up again before the shriek. And now we're almost at the final run through. Now what you'll see here is that our Rox isn't ready yet. So we have to be very careful, and we're going to go super slow. And then this was the only one that was like really tight timing. I'm going to do that and boop. That's where like having the A1 Volca would make things a lot easier. And then, yeah, but anyway, managed to do that, which is great. And then, yeah, we're going to pick up. We don't actually matter, so we're going to use Estrid for that one, and then we're going to use Isolde for this one. And now, because we have a huge amount of time that we need, we're actually going to put down Vortex here, and try and survive the raging. And this is what I mean by the raging happening. So obviously he took out Isolde super quickly, but if there are units on the board, he will rage for a while. So he's going to start going. Decimus will die at some point, but it will give us enough time to basically, Vortex will keep himself alive. And then we have enough time, 1, to generate cost, which is going to be helpful, and 2, to get our units back, because obviously we don't have that A1 Volca to bring the units back quicker. So yeah, so he's going to just rage. And then we're going to put down main tank, second healer, and then Nezha. And obviously we have other options to We can even put down Eris. We have other options if something happens to Oleg or your main tank, then you could actually swap them out. And I think that's the other thing that's really nice, is just having the option to have some survivability. And then we'll ult with Eris, and that is going to be the boss done. Now, I will show you the gear for this because I think it can be really helpful when you are looking at stat requirements. Obviously, once you're able to farm a 19 and get that a bit higher, you do then start to have access to some really nice gear. And I think that can really make the difference. I think it's one thing to say, but you will notice when we look at this, and the easiest way is we're going to go into guides, recommended lineups, going to come down and we'll see our recent clear here. I will say one thing, what you will notice is a lot of it is broken apart from the tanks. So obviously with Isolde, we have a broken Guardian, all HP bonus. If that was HP bonus as well, that'd be great. And again, artifacts are not pushed up. Watchguard's Unity, very nice. Oleg, our best tank, is in all Guardian. These aren't even very good, but a HP bonus Guardian set is fantastic. And a base Bastion Ring. Rox is in, I think you pick this up at some point on the quest, but it's like really basic. Like I said, because he has second life, it really doesn't matter. Just a random mythic artifact simply for the stats. That is it. Vortex is going to be in Acephalus. Happened to just be that way. It is nice because it has the HP and healing effect for him. And then he is in the Baby Tyre's Balm, which is this Chalice of Youth. And then our third DPS, she's in a Lunacy Visor, which I think can help. If you're whoever you're using as that block, having a Lunacy Visor can help because it can sort of help them survive a bit. Broken DPS here. We then have Ein, who is just in Wings of Grace. I forgot to show you that, actually. I forgot to show you that. I'll show you that trick very quickly. Constance is in our next best, basically, HP bonus, speed. She does a little bit of healing. Obviously, she'd need way more attack to be a decent healer, but there's that. Nezha is in my best DPS set with a single hates contagion. I got a few of the boosty things, so that was really helpful. Yeah, you can see solid, but not great. Then again, Eris is in the second one, broken, but with Wicked Vengeance as well, and another hates contagion that's got boosted. That artifact is really, really good. And then Decimus is in his Rapidity set, which he's been in basically since the beginning of time. But yeah, I will show you this little trick. Okay, so here with this second round, obviously, like I said, if you've got like a secondary DPS, here we're using Eris. If they're not like as super tanky, you can bring in, like here we've got Ein, someone who is in what I call Trash Wings or Trash Invig. He's in Trash Wings because we managed to get a set. And you just put it on them and then you pick them up back up because unlike gear dungeons or other things, there's no penalty other than cost. And so now obviously with that 12% attack, he is going to be able to hit harder. And that can be what helps you get through this round other than your best DPS, especially when like you're breaking the 19s, for example. It can really make a very big difference to that. So yeah, definitely would say it's something to look into. And yeah, obviously we are there like so. And obviously you could do it on your third round, for example, if you needed it with Nezha and, you know, with your third round instead. So yeah, that's absolutely fine. Yeah, and like I said, the coolest thing about this is that we are on day 28 of this Light versus Dark challenge, and we managed to clear it yesterday, which means it is well before the Volka A1. So if you are looking for a strategy that is without Volka and without Sadie, then yeah, although I will say you need some pretty strong ground DPS, and that is where Nezha is absolutely fantastic. The reason this strategy doesn't work so well with platform units is because you need to make sure that you have 2 platform units, healer and your DPS, as well, like for both rounds, if that makes sense. So it gets a little bit tighter. It is possible. I'm not going to say it's not impossible. But yeah, I think the main thing about these 3 strategies and the variations that I've showed is that there should be an option on your account. And like I said, it is going to help you progress because if you are able to start farming a 19, you are able to start getting some forge materials and bullions and lots of other little things, and it really does make a huge difference. If we do come over here and look at some of the gear that we've managed to get up to this point, all of this really lovely pieces, and you know, Astral Guardian and how much better this is all because of the Foundry. and here. And yeah, obviously another way to do that is gear dungeons, and we will go over gear dungeons in another video. So yeah, that is going to be everything from me today, showing you 3 main ways and various variations on how to beat Gear Raid 2 stage 19 to 21. Do let me know in the comments below which one you decided to go for, or do you have a different strategy? Because I have to say that is the great fun about this game, is there is always a little different way to go about it. But yeah, anyway, do like and subscribe if you haven't already. I look forward to seeing you in the next video and the next live stream. So until then, take care and bye for now.